She puts the wow, yum into words. It's the Lafayette food junkie herself on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
Welcome back to the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL. I'm your host, Tiffiany Deku. Here we talk about all the food happenings around Acadiana. If you like food, tune in. You might learn something new. Welcome back, guys. I am still on the hunt for the Ben & Jerry's pumpkin cheesecake ice cream. I have been to several stores and cannot find it. So if any of you out there has seen it in a supermarket around Lafayette, please email me at lafayettefoodjunkie.com at gmail.com. Chef Paul Credo with Pour. I can't talk tonight.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, we're starting out great. Is joining us tonight as guest co-host. How do you feel on the pumpkin spice latte? Are you for or against?
I'm against. I mean, I like pumpkin spice. I like pumpkin pie. I just
right.
Like,
I'm kind of the
as
same
far
way.
as like lattes and coffee. I just like coffee. I mean, I just want regular coffee. That's all I want. Like, I don't need every other
you don't
crazy
like
thing.
flavorings.
Like I just want like the strongest coffee in the world. Like it, honestly, it doesn't even really have to like taste good as long as I can drink it really fast and just be like up.
Yeah, you're like a, what is it called? Like a red eye, like a.
Yeah, I do red eyes at work all the time.
Yeah.
It's like coffee and espresso.
Eater posted this past week 65 things that shouldn't have pumpkin spice in it. And there was stuff like salsa and there were some other things. But most of it, I was like, well, I could see there being a pumpkin spice version of that. So I didn't get all of the items that were on the list.
It's good in a lot of things and you can do all kinds of stuff with it. I'm just not about like pumpkin spice lattes.
Yeah, me neither. They taste burnt to me, which is why I don't like them. It's burnt with a hint of cinnamon, and that's maybe the places that I'm getting them from just can't do them correctly.
Yeah, I mean, everybody gets them. Like, my girlfriend gets them.
Yeah.
All the people at work get them.
So I've been binge watching Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown, lately, and today I watched the Lyon episode, and they took a giant pumpkin and stuffed it with like old bread and prosciutto and cheese, and I'm sure there was some other stuff in there, and they baked it in an oven. I mean, that's a pumpkin
like a
item.
Giant pumpkin
Stuffed
casserole.
Pumpkin, yeah.
That's awesome.
That's something that I could definitely get behind. I like pumpkin in the savory sense. Like I like pumpkin ravioli.
Yeah, I'm all about pumpkin. I love pumpkin bread.
I could do a stuffed, chocolate pumpkin bread. Absolutely with you on that.
Toasted pumpkin seeds.
Yeah, there you go.
Eat those things all day long.
Yumminess. Well, I've been talking about the balling on the budget. I've been cooking a lot at home. On last week's show, I had talked about I had cooked a pork roast in the crock pot and made like barbecue pulled pork with it and did like lettuce wraps with it and was kind of talking about things that I was going to do throughout the week with it. And the guest on the show, Mickey, last week, she actually recommended doing a Korean steam buns with it. She said the dough to make it was super easy. And I looked it up.
I made some.
Did you really?
I swear to God,
You've been on a bread baking.
Yeah,
kick.
I've been going nuts, but like I made some steam buns a while back, and we did them with like pork belly and some red pepper ketchup and some other stuff. But I never made them before, and I was like, I can do this. So
she said it was really
easy. I made some. Yeah, no, it was incredibly easy.
And I looked at the recipe, and yes, it was easy, but not for like a work night easy. So I chose not.
Well, you
to
can
do them.
If you do them like ahead of time, they'll be fine. I mean,
oh, that's true.
If you have like a day where like you can like prep some stuff up, do them ahead of time. They freeze well, and you can just pull them out, thaw them, steam them as you need them.
So I made different things throughout the week with the pulled pork, and I kind of like opening up the fridge and trying to figure out what you're going to cook on the spot. To me, it's like my own little Top Chef competition, and that's the most fun and creative way that I cook. So out of that pulled pork, we did tamale pie one night. We had some polenta in the fridge, so we just put that as the tamale crust. You know, put the pulled pork, cheese. It was great. And then we did like these super fattening pulled pork sandwiches, grilled cheese sandwiches. And
I love the ones at Johnson's Boucherie, the little pulled pork grilled cheese, so good.
It was like the picture came out so well. Like it had so much cheese on it. It was so good. And did it on the Great Harvest high fiber bread. But now I'm officially sick of pulled pork.
Yeah, well,
I was like, yeah, and I'm done.
You gotta find like a bunch of different ways to eat what you cook, but I love like the random fridge box thing. Whatever you got in there, you just kind of just make. But it's more fun if you go into like a random kitchen, like someone else's house, and just cook dinner.
I don't think
based
I could
on
do
what
that.
they have.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
Do you do this a lot? This should be like a new show for you.
I've done it. I mean, like, dude, it's cool because I mean, like, you walk into a foreign kitchen and you have no idea what's there, so you just start digging through everything, and it's like, yeah, I can make this. I mean, like,
Paul,
it happens like when it's a bunch of dudes that are together.
Yeah,
everybody's drinking.
I think we just thought of another great Food Network show where a chef just goes into a random home and then cooks a meal out
with permission.
With permission.
With permission.
Ahead of time. No, I mean, without permission, that's part of the fun. They'll be like, who is this person? I'm just a chef and I'm filming for Food Network.
That would be like the real Kitchen Impossible because you got to sneak in there, cook food and do all this other stuff without getting caught.
We just thought of a great new food show.
Right.
Yeah. Well, with all of that money that I saved cooking at home, we took my boyfriend's kids to Pop's Po' Boys.
Right.
And I think the last time you came on the show was after our first dining adventure,
I think that was,
and kind of how disastrous.
Yeah, it was the mac and cheese and all kinds of other stuff.
This one was a lot better because we prepared. So we looked at the menu ahead of time. I talked to Chef Colin Cormier. I said, look, the son is allergic to corn and
all kinds
gluten.
of stuff. Yeah.
What on your menu can we eat? And he reminded me that the po' boys can be made without the bun, like they're basically like a salad.
Right.
And he was like, obviously you can't get any of the fried things. He's like, French fries are good, because I specifically asked him about the French fries, and he was like, look, if he sees something on the menu, if you tell me ahead of time and he sees something on the menu that's fried that he wants, let me know and I'll put something aside to make it without the corn.
The last time I was here, I was like, if people would be more inclined to like let people know ahead of time, more people would be more than willing to accommodate. And when you're dealing with people that are intelligent, that are savvy with like allergies and everything else, like you can really see the difference between your restaurants that really, really care about the food that's going out and the people that are coming in and like what they're getting. Yeah.
But he ended up getting a hamburger, so we didn't have to worry about any of that anyway. And we had a good time. I've found out the other key is having tables that you can color on, because then it really doesn't matter if they eat or not, because they really didn't eat their food because they were too busy coloring on the table. So I think next time me and my boyfriend are just going to order food, and then they can just have bites of it because they always want to eat our food.
Right.
So I think, that's the key too. Also, I will say this, I have never been a fan of kids menus, but the oldest wasn't going to come with us, and then she decided to come with us, so we didn't have what we were going to get her planned out. And I got there, and I was like, oh my God, there's all these po' boys. She's going to ask what every single ingredient is in each one. And the girl there was like, here's a kid's menu. And I said, thank you so much.
Like, thank you. There was 5
items on it, and she was like, shrimp. And I have to say, we did the shrimp bowl, so it was like fried shrimp and French fries. It was a huge portion, like kids' portion. So it was a really good portion. So I was so thankful for that kids. Do you have a kids menu at Pour?
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of just your basic kids menu, like chicken tenders, fries, shrimp and fries.
I mean, this is what this was too. It wasn't.
I mean, like, what do we do? Grilled cheese. We got grilled cheese with bacon. But most of the kids that come in there, like they're like freaks of nature. Like they get like rare fillets.
What?
Like little 7-year-olds.
Can I have those kids?
Yeah, like they get like rare fillets, asparagus, Brussels sprouts.
What?
Like they're like the ideal.
I think because I'm testing the waters. Like I'm trying to find more kid-friendly restaurants. Now it's gonna have to be a requirement that you have crayons and paper on the table.
I think every restaurant should have like full paper with crayons.
Right.
Like even as adults, it's fun to color.
Then they wanted to take the paper home, and they couldn't understand why we couldn't take everything off of this table so they could take this giant piece of paper home with them.
Tear the picture out. That's what most people do. The entire thing. I was coloring, and there's 3 kids. They were coloring. Dad was coloring. I mean, it was a giant masterpiece work of art. Like, but they wanted to take it home, and I had to explain to them that we couldn't take it home.
So it was fun. I'm continuing this new adventure.
You can always take a picture of it and just, blow it up later.
Right. Maybe that's what we'll do next time. Good idea.
Make a little family poster.
Yeah. Okay, we are going to take our first break, and when we come back, Chef Dustie Latiolais is coming on to talk about a boucherie that is happening next Sunday. So come back to us. It's the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
And now, the Lafayette Food Junkie Show, served up medium rare every Sunday night.
Welcome back to the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL. I'm your host, Tiffiany Daku. Joining us guest co-host tonight is Paul Credo, who is the executive chef of Pour. And joining us now is Chef Dustie Latiolais, who is with CrawfishTown USA. And you guys have a boucherie that's coming up next Sunday, and you're going to talk to us a little bit about that. What made y'all decide to do a boucherie?
Well, we've always had the idea of wanting to do something, and the original boucherie was supposed to be August 28th, and it was actually proceeds were going to go to Toby Rodriguez with Lashpa Boucherie et Cuisine. And he's a native of St. Martin Parish and never really done any event in St. Martin Parish.
Right.
And we were wanting to help his campaign. He was going through his Indiegogo campaign. And, we had planned this. And, 2 weeks before the event, the flood happened, which we had 4 of the chefs in the lineup that were affected by the flood. So we came together and said, hey, we need to, postpone and let's regroup, let them kind of, figure out what they're doing with their homes and vehicles. So that's the initial, Boucherie Dinner was going to be for. And so I talked to Toby afterwards whenever we rescheduled, and I asked him if we could split the proceeds between him and United Way of Acadiana. And he said that, no, let's just do everything for United Way of Acadiana for the flood victims.
Right. He's such a good guy. Yeah.
What the boucherie is supposed to be a family, community
Right.
event, and the community needs the funds now. So he said, don't worry about it. Let's go and we'll give it to the community that needs it. So that's where we are right now.
So it's happening next Sunday.
Yes.
And this one's not going to be, is it going to be like a traditional boucherie where people go and see the whole process, or is it more like a sit-down dinner?
It's a sit-down. It's a plated 7-course meal. From the dinner is going to be from 7 to 9, and we have cocktails before. LA 31's providing the beer, and each course comes with a beer.
Okay.
So it's all plated, and we have 2 chefs per team. So we have 2 chefs for appetizers and entrees, and all the way through the course. But it will not actually be the butchering of the pig. We are getting a pig butchered, and Toby's going to be a part of it, and he's helping break down the pig and give it to the chefs and let them create whatever they want with it.
So is this more formal, or is it going to be family friendly?
I say not formal, but
maybe
more
somewhere
rustic,
in the middle. Okay, yeah.
Especially being set at CrawfishTown. It's a 1800s barn.
Right.
So, it has a lot of character. It has,
Right.
cypress walls, everything. So it's definitely going to be rustic, but it's going to also be a great time. It's something that we've been wanting to do. We don't have many private dinners there or things like this. So it's going to be very fun for the guests and the chefs.
It's an A-list lineup of the chefs around Acadiana, but then you also have some chefs that are coming in from Baton Rouge and New Orleans as well.
Yes.
So who are those chefs that are coming in?
The chefs that are coming in, we have Alex Harrell from Angers in New Orleans. We have Justin Ferguson, which I worked with Justin at Struby's in Baton Rouge. He's actually coming to open a restaurant in Baton Rouge. It's going to be a BRQ restaurant in Baton Rouge. We have Ross Ford is the executive chef for Struby's, where I used to work. And then Natasha and Jeffrey Ponder, which is my really good friends. They're actually from Ohio.
Oh, wow.
And they moved down here, and they were in Denham Springs, so they lost the house, both vehicles.
Oh,
They lost
wow.
everything.
Yeah.
So they're coming also. Really good friends. I went to school with Jeffrey, and Jeffrey met Natasha in Ohio when he worked there.
Cool. So, and there's also going to be live music.
There is
Yeah.
live music. It is Forrest Huval, so he'll play throughout the meal. And the way we have it set up, we're actually be plating in the dining room so that the guests, have something to see and get to experience what the chefs actually do. And Toby's going to be helping us kind of walk through the courses and what the courses actually mean to the boucherie.
Okay, so he's going to be explaining
He's going to
it.
be there helping. We're going to have, because we're going to have a smoked course because every boucherie has smoked sausage, smoked pawns, anything, So, and then we'll have like crackling. We'll have, something with the backbone. So he's going to explain all the courses and all the different ports of the pig that comes from.
And how much are tickets, and where can people go to purchase tickets?
They're $100 a piece, and they're you go to CrawfishTown's Facebook, and it'll direct you to the Eventbrite page where you can get it there.
And when are y'all going to cut off the selling of tickets?
Oh, we're doing to the day of.
To the day of.
As much as we can get because it's a community event, and we're
Right.
trying to sell as many as we can. We have it capped out at 200. The tickets are going pretty quick, so we're just looking to wrap everything up.
Nice. All right. Really quickly, because you came to Boudin Bourbon and Beer last year,
Yeah.
and I talked to you before the show. You're going again this year to help
Yes.
out Corey. Is it Corey Barr?
Bar, yeah.
Barr, yeah.
Yeah.
Who is in Monroe.
Monroe, yeah.
Yeah.
Restaurant Cotton.
Is he related to the people that own the McAfee Farms?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No.
Okay. I thought I had saw there was a connection there or something. On a campaign to get Lafayette chefs there.
Yeah. This is going to be the second year I'm going. I have a connection. I've been trying to get local Acadiana chefs there because it's the whole event's based around Boudin.
Exactly.
And that's an Acadiana thing.
And there's a lot of expats that are in New Orleans
Yeah.
restaurants that cook, but there's no chefs that are in Lafayette right now.
No Acadiana restaurants are represented there. So I'm campaigning to get a couple of us to go there next year.
Yeah. Hey, I've been on a campaign for that for a while, so I will totally help you to do that. And then you're also going to be up in Shreveport, Monroe for the Louisiana Food Prize.
Yeah, Louisiana Food Prize is something that's based around the Louisiana Film Prize, which has grown over the last few years. And we're going to go represent, and actually Jeremy Connor from the area with Cellar Salt, and he's going to be out there also representing our area. So 5 chefs that got invited to go. So
that's really cool too.
it's going to be an amazing time. And the end of the beginning of October, I'm going to the North Delta Food and Wine Festival in Monroe for a couple of days.
Cool.
So
you're
busy.
very busy. I
Busy
know.
couple months.
October is busy food festival
Yeah.
season. I know I'm rearing up, so I can just imagine
Yeah.
what you're going to. All right. So the Boucherie is happening next Sunday. What are the times?
It's cocktail 6 to 7, 7 to 9 is the actual dinner. And we'll be there, with the alcohol and as much food as people can, fathom eating.
Right. And it's at CrawfishTown.
It
and
is.
tickets are $100.
$100 a person, and is the donation to United Way of Acadiana for the flood victims.
And you can go to the CrawfishTown USA Facebook and you can get more information.
Yes, it's all on there.
On tickets.
And the chef list also.
Okay, we are going to take another break, and when we come back, we have more with Chef Paul Credo. So come back to us. It's the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
The best tasting radio show in all of South Louisiana. It's the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
Welcome back to the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL. I'm your host, Tiffiany Deku, and joining us tonight as guest co-host is Chef Paul Credo with Pour.
What up?
Really quickly, if you miss Mabuhay as much as I miss Mabuhay, it was a Filipino restaurant that was in Lafayette for a very short time. Next Saturday at the VFW Post 9822 in Dusson, they're having like a little Filipino cultural event, and it's for $10. It gets you Filipino food, and then there's going to be 3 or 4 cultural acts that they're going to be doing that night.
That's cool.
Doors open at 5, food is at 6, and the performances start at 7, and proceeds are going to help LARC. So that's something
That's
really
cool.
cool. Did you get to eat?
I did not.
Oh, man. Oh.
I heard nothing but good things. I don't get to go out and eat that
Every
much.
time I'm hungover, I miss the garlic rice because it was perfect. It was garlic rice. They served it on banana leaves, and you got like a fried egg with that, some sig, some lumpia. You were set.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I miss that food so much. And I'm going to be out of town next Saturday and not going to get to go. So I'm really bummed.
Send you like a little Merc to go get you some food and just like freeze it.
Yeah, I'm actually going to New Orleans next weekend for a wedding, and we're going to go kind of early, and I'm going to check out Stein's Deli because I've been wanting to check it out. And we went to get donuts the last time I was in New Orleans, and it's right next door. We went to District Donuts, and they weren't open yet because I was going to get like some pastrami sandwiches for the road. Yeah, and Dusty's hanging out. He's like, yes. But so we're going to go kind of early before we're going to kind of spend the day in New Orleans, I guess, and I'm going to get some pastrami sandwiches. And hopefully it won't be like that scene in... I'm blanking on the name. Harry Met Sally. It won't be like that scene at Cat's Deli. Okay, well, I will explain to you what happened in that scene when we're not on the air, and then you'll see.
I have like a really good idea on what it's going to be.
All right, so
meat curtains.
So part of my balling on a budget was downloading different shopping apps on my smartphone, on my iPhone. And each week I was going to kind of talk about each of the different apps. Okay, quickly, I'm learning that you need to download all the apps to be able, and you can use them all with your one receipt. But to make it kind of profitable, you need to use all of them. But the one that I'm going to talk about this week is called Checkout 51. And you can't use all of your grocery receipts with it. So local stores, like local mom and pop shop grocery stores, like Rouse's isn't on there. But you can use like Walmart, Target, big name brand places. You can use it for it. So the way it works is you download it, and each week it'll give you different shopping items that you can get money back on. And this one is money back. Once you get to $20 in your account, you can cash out. And some of the stuff is name brand and some of it isn't. Like I was able to cash in on eggs this week, and the eggs weren't a specific brand. Right. What I liked about it, for one thing, you can use it on alcohol, which I didn't realize. So if you like to try different types of wine like I do, you can use it to do the wine. Also, I liked that it was a way for you to maybe check out a new item that may be at the grocery store, that if you're in the store, you may not see it, how everything is laid out. But with this app, there's not that many items, and you can kind of look through it that way. So that was another thing that I liked about it. So with my shopping this week, I saved a grand whopping total of 75 cents. So, like I said, it's going to have to be using all of the apps, and I'm sure as I use them more down the road, I'll learn more about them as I go.
You see, I'm not familiar with like the food apps. I mean, everyone knows about coupons, and they still throw coupons at you like you would not believe. And
I never used coupons, so that's why I was kind of using.
I never use coupons. I never use like the food apps. Like the only food app that I'm actually kind of aware of, and it's just because my girlfriend uses it, is a Fujicate, and that's just so like it grades foods. Lets you get like like each food will have like a certain category, like A+ all the way like to F, and it'll tell you why a score is so high or so low because of GMOs, or it comes from places that like are known for cruelty to animals, or they don't like they spray all their produce with like pesticides, or it's made with all kinds of bad things like high fructose corn syrup and whatever you can think of.
And what is the name of that
it's called Fujicate.
Fujicate. Okay.
And like what it does is like you just open it up and you scan like the barcode and the nutrition facts of it, and it'll pull it up. And if someone has registered it before, like it'll tell you all the information about it, and like if it's good or not, or like and why it's good or why it's bad. But at the same time, if it doesn't have it in their database, you take a picture of it and you send it to them, and they'll research it, and then they'll put it in their database. So it's like constantly updating.
Okay, well that's cool. I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah.
So I'm learning that So some of them you get cash back, and most of them you have to have a certain amount before you'll get anything back. Like I said, this one, which is Checkout 51, you have to have $20 in your account, and you'll get cash back. Some of them are gift cards. I kind of figured it would supply my Starbucks habit and pay for my coffee every month.
See, you'd probably be better off like doing online surveys to get that.
I do have some of those downloaded as well.
I don't see the food saving thing, like maybe on some things here and there, but I think it really applies to people who like buy insane amounts of food.
Right.
Like bulk buying, you end up saving more because you're buying like bigger purchases.
Right. And like I said, from that shopping list this week, I was only able to do one item.
Yeah.
Now, on some of the other programs, I got to do more. And like I said, each week I'll talk about a different one. But this one, I'm not that uberly impressed with.
Right.
But there's one app that I downloaded that you can dining out. Like you can use it dining out. Like you'll get points for dining out and different things. Some you just upload any receipt and you'll get points for doing that. But we'll talk about it more in the coming weeks. But 75 cents, man. Whoop, whoop.
I mean, it's better than nothing, right?
Right, exactly. Exactly. On Eater this week, there was an article about whiskey aging beef.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about this? So the way she did it is it was rags that she had soaked in whiskey. First off, tell us a little bit about dry aging beef.
All right. So when you age beef, like technically any beef that you buy out of a store, out of a market or whatever, it's aged for a certain amount of time. Generally, like your rule of thumb is about like 12 to 15 days as like a whole animal age. It stiffens up the meat. It allows all the blood to get out. It allows it to develop some flavor. It makes it easier to process. If you're trying to process like an animal freshly killed and slaughtered, all that meat is soft, it's pliable, it's full of blood. You're not going to get clean cuts. Like you need it to like harden up. So what happens is when you're dry aging beef, whether it's like, let's say we'll just use like a ribeye rack for instance, you're hanging it in a cool, dry place, like in a cooler or in a fridge with constant airflow, and it starts to create a shell around the meat. And a bacteria forms underneath that shell, and it starts to eat the collagen that's inside all the tendons and everything. It starts to break down all that stuff, eating all the sugars and fibers that are there. And what that does is it releases a lot of the blood. It loses a lot of the water weight that's in the meat, and you end up with like just the actual meat itself, and it becomes very, very tender. It takes on like a little musky flavor and smell, and it's wonderful. It's a little trickier to cook than like a normal steak because there's not much blood in it, so it doesn't show juice like you would think it would,
right.
And it cooks a little bit faster. But it's worth it in the long run to do that. It makes a superior steak. The flavor's there. So when you're whiskey dry aging something, you're taking a bunch of whiskey, putting it in a bucket, and then you're soaking rags in it. Mm-hmm. And what you're going to do is the same idea. You would truss your ribeye rack, for instance, and you would truss it around these wet, damping cloths. Like you'd let them soak in there to where like you know that it's going to like be like full of this liquor. You wrap the meat in it all around, and you truss it, and you hang it. It's still going to get airflow in it because it's a towel. It's porous. It's just going to slow down that process. So after like 40 or 50 days, generally, like a ribeye rack would lose about like 30% of its weight. With this, it's going to slow down a little bit more. It'll only lose about 20 to 25 if you're lucky. So when you whiskey age something and you're doing it with these wet claws, you generally let it go for longer. Some people will do like up to 100 days, even more, up to like 160, 180. Oh, wow. They have a guy in Chicago who does porterhouse racks, ribeye racks, and he has 15-year aged cuts.
What's the longest that you could age a steak for?
Well, this guy's doing 15 years. I didn't even think that was possible, but like,
how much does that steak cost?
I'm sure it's a pretty penny, but
yeah.
I'm sure you could only eat a small part of it because, like, as it goes, it starts to dry out more and more and more and more and more. So you have to find a way to slow it down. I don't know how to do that. I've never done anything for that long. I couldn't invest that much time in a steak. I eat it too much.
Right.
But it's worth it. It doesn't take that long. I mean, you just got to make sure if you're going to do it like yourself, if like you're doing it here in Louisiana, if you have a spot in your fridge where your fan is, you would just hang it and just let it sit. You don't want it like resting on a plate or a rack or something like that. You want it just to hang get that air flowing on it. If we lived up north when like it was really, really cold, you can hang it outside as long as it's like below 40 degrees. So like the wintertime on a nice sunny winter day with a lot of wind would be your ideal time to dry age anything or even hang cured meat. That wind that's blowing is going to create a good airflow, that temperature down. I mean, like you don't want to start doing your charcuterie in the middle of winter, but spring when your temps are like around like 60 to 70 degrees, just hang that stuff outside. The wind is going to do its thing. Temperature's controlled there. The humidity is natural. Just gotta have like a lot of patience with it.
Yeah. They said that the whiskey aged, it didn't taste like the alcohol at all, but it got like the smokiness and the barrel.
Yeah, I mean, depending
aged.
on like what whiskey you would use, or if you use
and
like
I think
scotches
they used
or bourbons.
Bourbon. Yeah. I feel like a bourbon would work better.
Yeah, well, it all depends, but like I mean, if you're using something with like a lot of like heavier notes like a vanilla and stuff like that, it'll present itself in the steak, especially when it's seared. If you're using something a little bit more peaty, it's going to give it like that little bit more smoky flavor. Again, it just depends on what you're using, but it will take on some of that flavor, but it's not going to taste like the actual liquor itself.
So if you're cooking a steak at home, like what would be the best kind of steak you could buy at a butcher shop or even like a grocery store? How would you cook it at home? Like what would be the best way to prepare it at home?
I don't know. It all depends. I love ribeyes. I love New York strips. I love like just a regular old fashioned sirloin. I am not really big on fillets. Like I mean, I do enjoy a good fillet.
I don't like a fillet that much either.
I like fat. So we'll just go ahead and go with ribeyes. If I'm cooking steak and I got a couple ribeyes, let's say I just went like to the market, picked up a couple steaks. I'd pull them out at least an hour before I'd even cook them.
To let them rest.
And just set them on the board and just let them get up to room temp. When you're cooking a steak from cold straight like to done, you have to bring it up so high and you have to cook that steak more than like what you would need to, and you lose a lot of juice. So if you give it a chance to come up to room temp, it'll cook faster, but it's going to lock in a lot of that flavor. It's going to caramelize properly.
And then you need to let it rest after you cook it.
Well, yeah, you got to let it rest. Okay. You let your steak rest for a while, let it get up to the room temp. If you sear it or if you're grilling it, you need to make sure your heat is there, you have oil, whatever.
Do you have a preference over searing versus grilling?
I like a seared steak personally.
I do too.
But I do love a grilled steak, but like if I'm searing it, I will sear it with like a little bit of olive oil and butter. Mm-hmm. Let it get nice and hot. Drop the steak in there. They'll just salt and pepper. Drop the steak. Let it sit. Like people, whenever they are cooking, they want to drop a steak down. They immediately want to start like fidgeting with it and touching it. Same thing with fish in a pan. Let it do its thing. Just let it sit there for a minute and caramelize and get that good sear. It's going to release itself when it's ready, and it's going to cook evenly. Flip it, like give it like 2 to 3 minutes. Like let it get some good heat, some love on it. Flip it, finish it off. Temp it out to whatever you want. Me personally, I like my ribeyes medium. I like a lot of other things like rare, mid-rare, but ribeyes, they have so much fat that medium just makes that fat just melt.
My dad, whenever he's in town, he always gets ribeyes from Best Stop, and I call them caveman ribeyes because they're huge.
They're like the tomahawks,
and they have like their seasoning on them, and he grills them, and that is got to be my absolute favorite steak. Is that Best Stop steak that he cooks on the grill, and he even gets the seasoning mix. So whenever because they travel a lot, so whenever they're not in town, they can get their ribeyes and season it with that mix. I wonder what makes that specific mix.
I don't know.
Do you like to put a seasoning on your steak prior? Like, I know you're not a fan of Tony's from previous episodes, but how do you pre-season it? Like just like salt and pepper? Or?
It all depends. But if I'm just eating steak, I'm decent amount of salt, but heavy on the pepper. I love a lot of pepper on a steak.
Me too.
But that's all I need with a steak. I
want to taste garlic and butter too.
I want to taste the meat. Like I don't want everything else to be hidden by like garlic and fire and everything else. I like the meat.
Yeah.
I want to taste that, and that salt and pepper. It gives it like the pepper alone. Enough pepper will give it that spice that you need.
All right, we are going to take another break, and when we come back, we have more with Paul. So come back to us. It's the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
From boudin to the best burgers Acadiana has to offer, it's the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
Welcome back to the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL. I'm your host, Tiffiany Deku, and joining as guest co-host tonight has been Chef Paul Credo with Pour. So Bon Appetit kind of had a major faux pas this week. I'll kind of...
You could call it a faux pas.
Yeah, a faux pas. Very funny. I wish I knew how to work the boards to find like the funny music to play for that. That was good. That was good, Paul.
Oh, I'm quick. Quick
Yeah.
like ninja. More fudge jokes.
Okay,
This is going to be fun.
So walking through it, I listened to a lot of food podcasts, and a while back on the Sporkful, they did a whole series called eating or cooking other people's food, eating other people's food. And it was all about like different cultures. And it's a big topic. I wouldn't say in the chef side of the culinary world, but in the culinary media, scholar, writer world, it's a big topic. And it's about chefs not of a particular ethnicity cooking another ethnicity's food. There's a lot of things called gentrifying the food,
Right.
Cultural appropriation. I've seen Columbusing of the food a lot. So it's a big topic. And the host of that podcast had insulted a well-known Vietnamese chef because he was kind of making recommendations on ways to improve pho.
Right.
And the Vietnamese chef came on the show and was kind of like, no, you don't do that. And he kind of talked about how to properly eat pho on the show. And he said, you always taste the broth first. Because, the broth is the main ingredient. They spend a lot of time on making the broth. So you always, before you put any of the ingredients in, you always want to taste it first.
Yeah.
So I wake up in the morning so the video was called, You're Eating Pho Wrong or something like that. It was very buzzworthy, clickbait, how they did it. I'm thinking it's that same chef and it's, he's going to be talking about that. So it comes up and it's this white chef that owns a restaurant called, I have it written down here, Stock. And he happens to be one of the top 10 Bon Appetit restaurants in the world. So that's why they got him on there. And he's saying the same thing, that you taste the broth first. And, he spent like 8 hours making the broth. And then he also showed a little technique on how to eat the broth, eat the noodles. And then he also said, and I don't know if he said it or if Bon Appetit was saying it in their promoting of it, that pho is the next ramen, which these are both dishes that have been around for
forever,
millennia. Right. So that's that. And I didn't think anything of it and kind of just went about my day, got off of work that day, and the internet kind of blew up. A lot of people were very offended by the video. A lot of people in the Vietnamese community were offended that this white guy was telling them how to eat pho. They were insulted that they were comparing Vietnamese food to Japanese food and kind of lumping it all together as one thing. And it kind of goes back to the topic. On another podcast that I was listening to on Eater, they had another white male chef from New York who happens to own one of the top taco restaurants right now in New York. And they were kind of talking about it too. There's a lot of topics that come up from this. Is it the gentrifying of food? Who is allowed to be the spokesperson for a particular ethnic cuisine? Is it wrong for white chefs to profit off of another ethnicity's cuisine? And did he really offend anyone? I blame Bon Appetit more, actually, than the chef himself. A lot of people were also upset that he was very cocky in the video and that he wasn't being kind of respectful talking about another culture's cuisine.
Yeah,
that was another thing.
People could be having fun with the video, and like this is my whole thing about food. Yeah, you're gonna have authorities on a specific type of food, like you'll have authorities on Spanish cuisine, authorities on Vietnamese or whatever. But at the end of the day, no one owns food.
Right.
Everyone is allowed to cook it. Everyone's allowed to eat it in whatever way they choose to. you can be mad if they're ignorant to the culture and like how the food started or like the actual proper way to eat something, and y'all can fight all day all over that. But at the end of the day, none of that matters. Like they're trying to bring race and other thing into all this, and it's just some guys take on a dish. I believe everyone's allowed to cook whatever food you want, no matter where you're from, where you came from, who you are, what color you are. If you have one leg, two legs, food is food. Everyone's allowed to do it. Everyone's allowed to cook whatever they want. Now, they can call it whatever they want, but people will call them out if it's not authentic or anything like that.
See, that's the other side of it. That there's this other backlash that if you're white and you're cooking another ethnicities, and not necessarily white, we'll just say you're not the ethnicity of the cuisine that you're cooking, that it's not seen as legit or authentic. And so for that argument, I think of Rick Bayless, who is very well known for cooking Mexican cuisine, but he also gets a lot of backlash because he is not Mexican.
But the color of your skin
cuisine.
or where you're from doesn't negate whether or not you can cook a specific type of food. Like if you know the techniques, if you understand the culture behind it, and you understand everything about the food, and you can make it. If you can basically, let's say, we'll take Vietnamese food for instance. If you learn all the techniques on how to cook this particular dish, you learn everything about it. And then you go pit it against an 80-year-old Vietnamese woman that has been cooking the same thing for her family her entire life. And if she enjoys that, then it's fine.
Right.
But the color of someone's skin or where they're from is not going to make it that less authentic if it tastes true.
There's a lot of things that go on with that. And I always think of gumbo. So everyone's gumbo is different. Every family's gumbo is different. And just because someone is of that ethnicity and they're making that meal, that's their family's version of that meal. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best version of that meal. It just means that's their family's version of that meal. And I think a chef being inspired by another, I mean, that's what being a chef is all about, like being inspired by different versions of food. Now, however, this same chef, Taylor Aiken, who owns Stock, also owned a well-known Thai restaurant and was charging $50 a plate for Thai food. So I kind of have a problem.
Yeah, well, that's someone trying to make money off of it. But
that is not that expensive, and then you're blowing up the prices. That's where that cultural appropriation comes from.
That's just having the market. If people are willing to pay for it, they're going to pay for it. You can serve them McDonald's if they're at triple the price. If they're willing to pay for it, they will. It's just the issue with that is, why do you pay for it? If you don't want to pay that price, then why do you pay for it? If people would not pay that price, then he would ultimately have to drop his prices in order to get business.
That's where people are thinking of the gentrification, that he's making like a version of the food that people that normally wouldn't eat that cuisine, almost like a friendlier version, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of people that were upset with the Bon Appetit video as well. They were like, why did they get this guy? Why didn't they get Andrea Nguyen? She just wrote a cookbook on pho, is very well versed in it. Like, why did they not get her? Why did they get this guy? Which they got that guy because he was one of the chefs in the top restaurants that they got.
They should have gotten like an authority on it, but at the same time, they got a guy who's popular, who has a successful restaurant, and he's good.
And this majorly impacted his restaurant too. Eater said that on Yelp, his restaurant went down a whole star.
I hate Yelp
from
so
it.
much.
They had to like shut it down and take off all of the remarks that people were making that were from the video and not actually from like eating at his restaurant.
That's just people being overly sensitive about the wrong things. It's dumb. Like me, for instance, I'm not Cajun. I was not born in Louisiana. I was raised in Louisiana. So by the time that I've been here since I was a kid, I could be considered Cajun, but I was never born here. My family's not from here. But I will outcook most people in Cajun all day long. I make some of the best gumbos in the world. I can do anything as authentic as you can get because I know the proper ways to do it. But not being a Cajun doesn't mean it's not going to be authentic Cajun. I know the real way to do it.
This is definitely not an easy subject to talk about. And a lot of times what's happening in the rest of the world, topic-wise, kind of boils over into food, and food kind of makes it a little bit easier way for you to kind of talk about different topics. And this is one of the topics that has been super popular right now in the food world. And it kind of, I guess in a way makes it easier to talk about because everyone eats and everyone can kind of sit down at a table and everyone has an opinion on it. And I don't think that there's a black or white answer on what's the right way, to handle the situation. And there's a lot of gray that goes on with different things. And I don't think there's going to be one right way or wrong way
people
to
are
talk about this.
freaking out about this. And you want to know the right way to eat pho? I'll tell you right now. You grab a spoon, you fill it up with like broth and whatever else you want, and then you eat it. When I get pho, I don't taste the broth first. I just throw everything in there and I just start eating.
And that's your preference. And that's another topic that comes from that.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Is people shouldn't tell people how to eat their food.
Yeah, like if I want to just take the whole thing and dump the broth out and just eat the greens, that's how I'm going to eat it. Like you don't tell me how to eat my food.
All right, we got to go because we're out of time. But thank you so much for joining me tonight, Paul.
Thank you.
That's our show. Thanks for tuning in. Join us next week, Sunday at 6 p.m. This has been Tiffiany Daku on News Talk 96.5 KPEL, and this has been the Lafayette Food Junkie Show. Thanks for listening, and as always, happy eating, Acadiana.